Hi everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Landscapers Grow Together video interview series. And this week I'm very privileged to be joined by Dave Penton from Fluid Dynamics. Fluid Dynamics is an award-winning boutique pool construction company. Dave's also the co-founder of the Ask the Masters podcast, which is an educational podcast for landscape architects and contractors. So welcome, Dave. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Why don't you give a little intro to yourself and your business and just a little bit of the history there? That would be great.
Sure. So my name is Dave. I live in Southern California, and I run a company called Fluid Dynamics Pool and Spa, and we're a high-end residential pool construction company. We specialize in multi-million-dollar estates. So we don't do a lot of volume, but we do very big projects. And so since 2006, I've been a part of an organization called Genesis. It was originally Genesis 3, and it's an educational program that you go through. And when you graduate, you're eligible to become a member of what's called the Society of Watershape Designers. And the program teaches things like design theory, color theory, along with all of the technical aspects of building pools and water shapes and fountains and things like that. This year I'm the sitting chair of the Society of Watershape Designers, and back in February we launched a Facebook page called Ask the Masters, which is really targeted towards continuing the conversations that began in the classrooms. And so we have a lot of questions and answers, and a good amount of our instructors from the Genesis program are on there. And so people can come, they can ask questions, and we will respond. And then out of that grew our podcast. I think today we just launched episode 20. And then next week when this will launch, we'll be on episode 21. So we're a couple months into it. It's really been a lot of fun. We cover lots of different topics. I actually just sat down with U.S. Olympic gold medal swimmer Caitlin Sandino yesterday. Had a lot of fun just learning about her life and kind of some of the charity things that she does. We do educational, real technical stuff, but we're really trying to break out of just the pool industry and really kind of grow the conversation into everything around water and architectural design.
Awesome. It sounds like it's going great, and I've listened to a few episodes. It's super useful, interesting stuff. So everyone should go and check that out. I'll put the link in the description to this video. So I guess just a few general questions about kind of, business and how you grew your business and how you decided to kind of niche into the boutique side of things, the high-end side of things. What did you find, what made you make that decision, and what helped you to kind of grow as you went into that niche?
Yeah, so I have a real unique story. So I started in maintenance. So I was just a pool cleaning contractor, and I was actually working for my best friend's parents, and they were a wealthy family. And the father, Mr. Coelho, pulled me aside one day and he said, "Dave, I know you're more than this, and you're capable of doing more." And he said, "We have a project. We're going to be redoing our backyard, and we have $100,000+ budget, and we would like you to go get your contractor's license, and we will wait for you." And so that was sort of my launch into the construction side of things. And so I dove in right away, and for probably 5 or 6 years, I ran both a maintenance company and a construction company. And then I transitioned myself out of the day-to-day maintenance side of things and hired a number of young kids and raised them up and actually built a number of their businesses. So I looked at it as an opportunity where I could teach them and impart my knowledge to them while they were building their own companies, and then launch them out. So we did that for a number of years, and then probably maybe 4 years ago, we had so much work on the construction side that we just kind of we sold that part of the company off, and so we've been just construction now for quite a few years. And The one reason why I chose to target the market that I did is because uh, people with wealth in America, they always have wealth, and living in the Los Angeles area, there's always a lot of high-end projects. There's always people that will have money here, and even in a downturn, I found that we can be fairly stable, and so we really kind of pulled our operations in and made ourselves a smaller company, and we just cater to the needs of the high-end clientele, and they're very different needs than kind of the general public, and so that was kind of my transition into high-end
Yeah,
architecture.
that's super interesting, because I know that a lot of people watching will be maybe in that phase where they're starting up and they're doing maintenance perhaps, and they're kind of growing that. And it was almost like a lucky break, if you like, that kind of
Sure.
made you switch your idea and think maybe I could do something a little bit different. So I really like that. And I kind of think that everyone needs a lucky break in some respects in business, or everyone kind of gets one in the end. And hard work and perseverance is all a big part of it as well, obviously no substitute for that, but
Sure.
sometimes you just need that kind of injection from someone who's going to help you. So I really love that aspect of the story. And I think if you're waiting for that, then it's going to come soon. So yeah, that's awesome. So we're talking about your podcast, so Ask the Masters, and I believe that both you and your co-founder have found that quite useful for actually generating interest in your main companies. So how has that worked?
Yeah, so I always knew, I always dabbled in social media, and I had an Instagram account. I didn't do a whole lot with it. I would post some pictures. One of my mentors, actually the studio that I'm sitting in is from one of my mentors. He sold his construction company and started this a number of years ago. So he and I would always trade YouTube videos over the years, and so it was kind of fun. He would post a YouTube video about something interesting that he would doing, and then I would post one, and it was never a rivalry. It was just kind of fun, and just watching the engagement that happened around that. And then for probably about 2 years, we kind of got away from that. He sold his company, and so he wasn't in backyards anymore, and so really the Ask the Masters podcast kind of grew out of a bit of a desire of mine to kind of get back into that rhythm of doing regular posting and that. And I got to tell you, it's really the difference between a few years back and now is that there's so much more access, and people are looking so much more through social and that. And I'm getting phone calls, and it's really been surprising to me that just since February, in the 4 or 5 months that we've been doing this, just how many more phone calls I've gotten. And then one of the co-founders of the page, his name is Grant Smith. He has seen a significant increase in the amount of inquiries that he's getting, and the quality of the projects that he's getting. It's not the general tire kickers that are that are looking for the low price. They're actually seeking him out and realizing that he is one of the experts in his field, and so he's able to command more money. People just come in with an expectation that he's going to be a higher end contractor, and so I think that's been really eye-opening and surprising to me. And just the fact of being visible and being seen. I think that's really a key part of the whole social aspect, is that if people look into your eyes, even if it's on a computer screen, and they feel like they know you and they get to know your personality before ever talking to you, that breaks down so many barriers to the first sale. And so, it's if you can personalize yourself online, you're far ahead of most of your competition.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's something that people are starting to realize, is kind of establishing their authority by putting out education, basically. So
Sure.
educating the market and educating potential customers on what they can do and showing themselves to be the authority. I think that's super important. And, it's obviously, we've got some proof of it here. So that's awesome. It's good to see it coming to life. You're part of this Genesis educational program,
Organization.
right?
Yeah.
Or organization. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're obviously invested in like your self-development and your education. How important do you think it is to kind of continue to upskill yourself as you go through your career?
I really think it's critical, especially in the field that I'm in. I tend to be on the cutting edge with the pool construction that we do. So for me, it's critical to always know what the most recent things are, what is the next thing that's coming out, and so one of the things as you graduate from, we call it now Genesis University, in order to maintain your Society of Watershape Designers certification, you actually need to complete CEUs. And so just like architects and landscape architects have to continue their education, we have a certain number of hours that we need to complete each year. And so it's really, I really do feel like that's a critical element to just staying relevant. I mean, we all know the individual who, typically some of the older people that just refuse to integrate some of the current technology and there's definitely a market for that. But if you want to continue to be relevant and be the most relevant within your market, I think there's the only way you can do that is by continuing your education and continuing to push and learn and understand what's new and coming in your field of specialty.
Right. And then you can obviously kind of feed that back out into your content and show other people what you've been doing and what you've been learning. So it's all a circle, I think.
Yeah.
um, what about things like mentoring? Have you ever had, a coach or a mentor who's, been able to kind of accelerate you?
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
looked up to people?
It's something that's been a part of my career since the very, very beginning. My first job was from actually one of my church leaders. So when I started cleaning pools, I had known this man since junior high, really, and so he mentored me into the maintenance side of things, and then I started my own maintenance company. And then again, I mentioned the studio that I'm in, Randy. We built pools in the same market, and yet he never considered me a competition or a threat. There's enough work out there for everybody, and so he would take me under his wing, and I would come right along with him. And he always did the boutique jobs, and he always, he did the most expensive houses in and around this area. And so I would join him and ride along in his vehicle and just see what it took and watch his interactions and see how he interacted with clients. And there'd be times when he said, "Okay, Dave, you can't come into this meeting because this person, that wouldn't be appropriate," and just watching and learning and taking it all in. And then, over the years with my maintenance company, especially, I really took pride in that. I would never hire employees. I would always hire subcontractors. And the reason I did that was because twofold. I wanted somebody that was invested in their own development and their own company, but then I really took pride in helping them grow their company. And it made it a little bit frustrating for me. Not frustrating, but just a little more difficult in that every 2 to 3 years, they had grown their company to the point they could no longer work for me. So mentoring has always been really kind of deeply embedded in my DNA. And I have people fly in from all over the country, and they'll sit in my truck with me and ride along, and we'll spend a day going and looking at all of my jobs. And it's really not all that difficult. And it's just my way to pay it back for everybody that's spoken to my life over the years.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's something that we kind of accept when you're a little bit younger, like when you're kind of finishing up school, you'll find a parent's friend to shadow for a day, but
Sure.
we stop doing it after that point. And actually, having access and having like insight into how successful people are doing things is just is invaluable. And that's also why I'm doing this interview series, right, is to kind of help expose that and help other people along. And it's also said, isn't it, that if you're trying to go somewhere and get somewhere, you're only going to do that by helping others to like pull pull themselves up and then like pull you up at the same time. So I really like that kind of collaborative way of doing things.
Yeah, and real quick too, the
Mm,
one thing that I think people get really nervous about is they get scared of that initial contact, and I think, as I've grown to my position, something somebody told me, which was really helpful a number of years ago, is they said, don't be afraid to ask, because most of the mentors are not going to offer. But don't be afraid to ask, but don't ask open-ended. Have some sort of a structure, and have something that is not going to necessarily overwhelm somebody. Like for me, when somebody calls and, hey, I'm going to be on vacation and going to Disneyland, can I ride along with you for 4 hours in a day? That's totally manageable for me.
hmm.
Whereas if somebody comes in and says, hey, can you mentor me? Well, what does that look like? Does it look like you need 5 hours a week, for the next year?
Yeah.
That's a little bit more overwhelming. So as you think about asking for help, just think about how you can structure it. And I think you'll be surprised how many people are willing to give back.
Yeah, I really agree, and I've experienced that in my life and my career as well. So definitely second that. Um, okay, so jumping back a little bit, so you got this first six-figure job, let's say, when you were just starting out. You got your contractor's license, and this was obviously, it's like a coup, if you like. It's a great thing to get
Sure.
you started. How do you go from that and that one kind of first successful job, if you like, to building a real business off it and kind of continuing to get clients and showing your value to them and building trust? How does that, how do you have, yeah, what's your advice for kind of that journey?
Yeah, so I'm a learner and I love to learn. And so starting a maintenance company was fairly easy for me. I was not married at the time when I started that. And so I think my advice would be to start small and do something that you can really understand, and that you can really kind of get your structural things in place. If you jump in and try and build $1 million pool and you have no business structure, that's you may be
Yeah.
successful, but it'll be a lot more difficult. So that's how I did it. I started very small. I was still going to college at the time. Built my company, learned about billing, learned about setting up business accounts and all of that, and credit, and worked my way there. And so I had my structure kind of formed once I transitioned into the construction side of things. And then I just didn't, I eased into the construction side. It was many, many years where I was literally cleaning pools 3 days a week, and then doing the construction side 2 days a week. And so I was very, I was spread thin, and I was working very, very hard. And that was after we were married, but before we had children. And so I had that ability to. And so for me, it was just kind of a natural continued growth. I started to have employees at that point, and just learning all of that. And so for myself, I could not jump in and have 10 employees and do all of that. I had to work into it slowly.
Mm. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think when you have structures, like you said, and systems in place, you can almost at that point plug in, the growth and the extra customers. But if you don't have it all organized, it can be difficult, and something will break, and then you have to pay attention. Part of your process will break. So yeah, important to almost plan for scale if you want to grow. So
Exactly.
that's
Yep.
that's a good piece of advice there. I like that.
And not try to
um,
scale too quickly either. I
mm,
see that in so many people, is they try to scale so quickly, and yeah, you can sustain it for 3 or 4 or 5 months, but then, you know, then everything starts to catch up, and then you start to get a bad reputation.
yeah, that's a risk too. You want to be careful. What would you say? I mean, do you have kind of further pointers on managing that growth, managing that scale?
Um, Not necessarily. I mean, it's just there's always that dance. There's the dance of, do I have enough employees to do this? And then you get all the extra work. And I think the biggest thing for me is just very good communication with your clients,
Hmm.
and don't promise a client, hey, I can I can be there, next week, or when you can't. Honesty goes a long way, and a client would much rather hear, what, we're on a very important project right now. I can't get there for 10 days, but I promise you I will be there. And at least with me, I have enough crews that there's the occasional time where I have to go, okay, I'll pull somebody off here to give them to you just to get you through this hump. And just if you have open communications with your clients, they understand. And they'll be more willing to work with you if you have that honesty up front all the time. So, because there's always going to be times where you need to be in 3 places at one time and you can't be. And so just keeping those lines of communication open, you'll go a much further way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. So, well, we're coming up on time. So do you have 1 or 2 quick tips on building a successful construction business?
Yeah, it really comes back to, for me, all of it comes back to mentoring. As the Society of Watershape Designers, we have different levels within our society, and the top level is SWD Master. And just in the last year, we've formalized a full mentoring program. And so everyone that wants to achieve the highest status, they have to mentor, and we have to do 3 projects together with your chosen mentor. So I really just think, so many times we feel like we're doing a good job, and everybody wants to be the best at what they do, but there's just so many questions that you can't answer on your own, and just surrounding yourself with a group of individuals, like-minded individuals, and just finding those people that work within your community. The biggest thing that I have enjoyed from my time within Genesis and the Society of Watershape Designers is just that none of us consider each other rivals or competition or anything. There's just a healthy respect, and trying to open yourself up to that so that you can help others, but then finding other individuals, that are a little further along the road than you, that can do that, because you're always going to come up against something that you've never seen before, and to have a community available that you can reach out to, 9 times out of 10, one of them has done it and can help you through.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Find your community, find your tribe, is what they say, and find a mentor. I definitely resonate with that, and I think a lot of people will too. So awesome. Well, we're coming up on time, so thank you so much, Dave. Really, really appreciate your time here. You've given us so many golden nuggets, which I think people will appreciate. So yeah, thank you, and tune in again, everyone, next week for the next episode.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for having me.